Hey there. My name is Bruce Van Horn, and I want to thank you for taking time out of your life, for investing in you to take this course called How to Create Your Dream Life. I am super excited to go down this journey with you to help you unfold what it is you want to do with your life. And I want to congratulate you on making the wise decision to start living your life the way you really want to. You've probably got this deep inner knowing that you are capable of living much more expansively, much more expressively than you have been. You've probably got this inner knowing, this thing that tugs at you inside, knowing that you are not living to your fullest potential, yet you truly believe that you are capable of. I want to support you in that. And I want to tell you that you absolutely are capable of living the life of your dreams. That's what this course is all about. I'm going to talk to you about how I've applied these very same ideas and techniques to my own life. Okay, so we're going to jump into all of that, but I want to thank you again, not just for taking this class, but for making the decision to become the fullest expression of who you were created to be. And I thank you because when you make the decision to become the best version of you that you can possibly be, not only do you make your life better, but you enhance and improve the lives of everyone around you, which causes them to enhance and improve the lives of everyone around them, which means that your decision to live your dream life actually benefits me. So thank you very much. And I'm just excited to be with you and to see how all of this unfolds for all of us who are embarking on this journey. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right into this first lesson. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So I want to take just a minute to tell you a little bit about me. You know, it's easy for you to hear about Bruce Van Horn, to see me in my current manifestation of myself. So many of you already know a lot about me, but some of you might be taking this course and you don't know much about me. So currently, I actually am an international best-selling author. I am the host of the Life is a Marathon podcast, which has been one of the most fulfilling things I have ever done in my life. This podcast is consistently in the top 5% of all podcasts that are produced. I've had over 1 million downloads from 196 countries around the world. It is truly an amazing experience. So you might know me as a motivational speaker. I am often speaking live in front of audiences or doing retreats or speaking to corporations to motivate their staff. And so it's another thing that I just absolutely love doing. I also have a life coaching practice, and I am what I call a transformational life coach. I am very often introduced when I'm either speaking on stage or when I am a guest on somebody else's podcast or radio show. Very often, the person introducing me will use the phrase, Bruce is one of the most positive people I have ever met. And that's something that I enjoy being introduced as. Okay. But here's the truth. You know, it's easy to look at somebody who has a certain level of success and just assume that they've always been that way. But it certainly isn't that case for most people, and certainly for me. For the overwhelming majority of my life, from the time I was really a teenager up until my mid-40s, at the time I'm recording this, I'm 52 years old. And so most of the growth that has produced the person that I am now has occurred really in the last 10 years. And so prior to that, I suffered from a very low self-esteem. I had a poor self-identity. I did not see myself as a person of great worth. I'm also a person who has filed bankruptcy twice. And for many men, our ability to provide an income for our families is really where we derive a lot of our sense of identity and self-worth. And so when I filed bankruptcy the second time in my early 40s, I was at one of the lowest points in my life. I felt like a complete failure. I had a daughter. She died tragically in the year 2000. And if you have experienced the pain as a parent, you've experienced this pain of losing one of your children, my heart breaks for you. It is a type of pain that I would not ever wish on anybody. And so I was dealing with that as well. I spent most of my life chasing. I spent my life searching for happiness rather than just being happy, which is something we'll uncover in the course of this course. I thought happiness was something that you had to acquire. I thought it was something that was outside of me. I thought that happiness was something that I would feel when I accumulated enough stuff or had the right relationships or I had the approval of other people. That was another thing that I really struggled with. I was constantly looking for other people to validate me, because I wasn't validating myself. So when I came to the point where I was 42 years old, I had really given up living. I was literally just going through the motions. I was waking up on any given morning, simply hoping that today won't be any worse than yesterday. But I'd given up any hope of my days ever getting better. I had certainly given up any type of dreams that I may have had when I was younger. I was incomplete, and I never saw any hope of ever becoming complete again. And so something had to change. I really was at a place in my life where I was considering taking my own life. I figured something had to absolutely change, or my life was no longer going to be worth living. Because if I had lived the first 42 years of my life that way, I certainly don't want to live the next 42 that way. Okay? Then something did happen. A shift occurred through something that I didn't really understand or see its significance. In November of 2005, my older brother came to Richmond, Virginia, which is where I live. He did not live in Richmond, but my older brother came to Richmond, Virginia in November of 2005 to run the Richmond Marathon. And he stayed at my house, and later on that evening, we were sitting around, and he said something to me that I thought was the most ridiculous thing I had ever heard in my life. He said, "Bruce, you should do this." And I said, "I should do what?" He said, "You should run marathons." And I literally laughed at the man. I said, "You know what? I have not run since I was in high school. So I'm overweight, I'm out of shape. I actually work from home. My office is upstairs. And so I live in a community where everything I need is within a 5-minute drive. So I don't even like to drive 26 miles unless I'm going on vacation. So I certainly don't think I could ever run 26 miles." Then he said something to me that ultimately would change my life. It didn't right then, but it started the shift. He said, "Bruce, the hardest part about running a marathon is making the decision to do it." I didn't believe the man. I didn't. I was pretty sure that the hardest part about running a marathon was the actual running part. Little did I know that he was absolutely right. And so over the next couple weeks, though, it occurred to me that since my older brother is able to run marathons and I am overweight, I'm out of shape, and I'm struggling to even play with my boys, who at that point were 8 and 2 years old, I was having a hard time even riding bikes with them without getting out of breath after about 15 or 20 minutes. So I decided that I would at least join a gym and start exercising to try to get in a little bit better shape and, try to feel better about myself, but mostly so that I could enjoy being a dad, which I wasn't even enjoying being a dad back then. So I did. So I started on a treadmill. I started just walking. And then after a little while, I set a goal of hoping to someday be able to jog. And that's using the term loosely. But I wanted to jog 1 mile without walking. It took weeks before I could do that. I almost gave up a couple times, but I remembered what my brother was doing and I kept at it. And finally, I was able to jog 1 mile without walking. And at that point, something in me shifted. And I actually was starting to enjoy this running and jogging process. And it was only about a week or so more that I was able to jog 2 miles without walking. And then in another couple weeks, I was jogging 3 miles without walking. And by this time, it's the spring of 2006. And so I enrolled in one of our neighborhood 5Ks, which is 3 miles. And I did that, and it was fun. I had a great time. And for the first time in many, many, many years, I was doing something that was actually giving me pleasure. I was finding happiness in the running process. So I enrolled in a 10K that was coming up a couple months later, and that was another great experience for me. And at that point, in April of 2006, I decided that I would take my brother's word for it, and I started training for a marathon. Now, I had never trained for a marathon before. I didn't know whether or not I would actually be able to do it, but I was at least going to give it a try. And so I set off on this journey to become a marathon runner. I started visualizing myself running the Richmond Marathon coming up later in November of 2006. And I saw in my mind, I saw myself running with my brother. I saw myself crossing the finish line. And so I held on to that vision while I was training throughout the summer of 2006. And something happened to me during one of my long training runs. I was out for an 18-mile run early one morning in August of 2006 when a thought occurred to me. I literally had an epiphany. An epiphany is just a term that means a a moment of sudden revelation or insight. Very often the word epiphany is used in spiritual or religious context where you suddenly have this deeper understanding of God or a deeper understanding of who and what you are. And that happened for me. I was out running and I literally came to a complete stop in the middle of the road. And I had one of those, oh my God moments. And if you had asked me earlier that morning, see, I was still a grumpy, pessimistic, surly, sarcastic, negative person in every area of my life except running. So earlier that morning, had you said to me, Bruce, what's your problem? I would have been able, without any hesitation, to rattle off for you a very long list of exactly what all of the problems were in my life. And guess what else I had? I had an equally long list of who or what was to blame for all of my problems. I blamed everybody. I blamed the government. I blamed God for so many of the problems, especially for taking my daughter away. I was in a difficult marriage and, so I blamed my wife. I blamed absolutely everybody or everything except the only person who should have been on that list. And it occurred to me, Bruce, you don't have all of these problems. You only have one problem. You have a thinking problem. Okay. And it occurred to me that I had totally transformed my body. Here I was out on an 18-mile training run. In my mind, I already was a marathon runner. I had not yet run my very first marathon. That wasn't coming up until November. But in my mind, I already was a marathon runner. I was no longer overweight. I was no longer out of shape. I was doing my 18-mile training runs ahead of the marathon training program that I was doing. I was feeling great. And it occurred to me that there was only one person who was responsible for me completely transforming my body into that of a marathon runner. And it was me. And it wasn't so much that I got up and I did the physical work, which I absolutely did. But the thing that I really came to understand was that what really transformed in me, that allowed me to make this physical transformation in my life, was I transformed a certain part of my thinking. I had let go of all of my negative self-talk about my ability to run marathons. I coached myself. I said, you can do this, Bruce. You are a marathon runner. I know it's difficult. I know your body wants to quit, but you can do this. The body will do what the mind says it should do. And it occurred to me that I had transformed my body by transforming my thoughts. And it also occurred to me that most of the problems that existed in my life existed because I had a very, very negative self-talk. I had a negative outlook on life. I didn't like who I was. I didn't like most other people. That was the main source of my unhappiness. And so it occurred to me that if I could completely transform my body by changing my thoughts, how many other areas of my life could I turn around by challenging the limiting beliefs, by instead of having negative self-talk and criticizing myself or criticizing other people, could I change those areas by coaching myself, by shifting my outlook to being optimistic rather than pessimistic? So I did. I set out on a journey to completely change my thoughts. And the other thing that I did was I started dreaming again. It occurred to me that I had been visualizing myself. I had been dreaming in advance of being a marathon runner. I had held on to this image that I had created in my head, this movie that I was playing in my mind about myself crossing the finish line later in November of 2006, which I went on to do. I ran my very first marathon, the Richmond Marathon, in November of 2006. I ran it with my brother, or actually I crossed the starting line with my brother, but I actually had become such a good runner that I wound up beating my brother. So it was just really an exciting, transformational time in my life to discover that most of it was all about my thoughts. It occurred to me that I am 100% responsible for my thoughts. I might not be 100% responsible for the events that had happened to me in my life. I certainly was not 100% responsible for my daughter passing away. Okay? I was marginally 100% responsible for the 2 bankruptcies that I had filed, but I was 100% responsible for all of the thoughts, for the story that I wound up telling myself about the things that were happening to me in my life. I discovered an amazing formula that I started applying to my life. It's called the E+R=O formula. I learned this formula from Jack Canfield. He writes about it in his book. I highly recommend this book called The Success Principles. He writes about this formula. He said, most of us, and I certainly was this in my own life, most people live in what's called an E=O. We have this event that happens to us in our life, and that produces an outcome. And so the outcome is we're either bankrupt, so it can be a physical outcome. It's usually though an emotional outcome. It's our mindset, it's our perspective, it's the story that we tell ourselves, it's the way we feel about something. And so, for example, let's use we're driving to work as an example, and somebody cuts us off in traffic and we have to slam on our brakes, and maybe we're even in a minor fender bender. So that's the event. Somebody cut us off, and so now we're angry, and we're telling this story about how this inconsiderate person was paying absolutely no attention to what he or she was doing, paid absolutely no consideration to me or my safety. And so now I'm all angry and I'm upset, and this is the story that I tell myself, and I start telling everybody else, and every single time I tell the story gets bigger, and I get angrier and angrier. And that's the outcome. So there's this event, and now there's the outcome. But that's not really what happens, is it? What really produces the outcome is the event happens, and then it's our response to the event that produces the outcome. So I could just as easily experience the very same event. Driving to work, somebody cuts me off, I have to slam on my brakes, maybe or maybe not. I'm in this minor accident, and now my car is damaged. I could just as easily say, oh my goodness, that person who just cut me off, they must have something going on in their lives that, maybe they're in an emergency. Maybe their son or daughter or spouse is in a hospital, or maybe they are really late for work and they're about to lose their job. So that poor person, it wasn't that they were totally disregarding me or my safety. It's just that they were so consumed with with his or her own problems that they were unaware of mine. But my goodness, I saw it in time, and I was able to slam on my brakes. And while I did have to veer off to the side, and I ran my car up against a fender, I'm safe. I was protected. I was provided for, and the car can be fixed. And I just hope that person who cut me off, I hope they're okay. I'm so thankful that I'm okay. And I'm so thankful that I didn't crash into somebody else and cause physical harm to them or their vehicle. See, that's a response that I could choose that produces an entirely different outcome. And so now my outcome is one of gratitude for having not been harmed, gratitude for still being alive. It's an outcome in which I'm now concerned for the well-being of the person who cut me off. And I'm thankful that nobody else was involved in this incident. You see, we are 100% capable of choosing a different response. And so while I can't change the fact that my daughter passed away, instead of being angry, instead of being hurt, instead of feeling like I will never, ever be happy again for the rest of my life, I can tell myself a different story. I can tell myself a story of purpose. I can tell myself that for whatever reason, her brief life on this planet had purpose, had meaning, and I can now use that experience to comfort other people who are going through that same situation. I am 100% response able, meaning I am in control. I am able to respond to any event that occurs in my life, whether or not I had any responsibility in causing the event. I am always able to respond in a way that builds me up, that moves me forward, that supports the person that I want to be. So rather than letting the events determine the outcomes, I control how I want to respond to anything. That idea and that idea alone completely changed my life. And so I highly encourage you to dive into this event plus response equals outcome and challenge your beliefs. How do you feel about certain events that have happened in your life? How do you want to respond to certain events that are coming up in your life? You get to choose. The other thing that I shifted in myself, you see, for me, my life was all about grasping. I thought that I had to get happiness, that I had to get money, that I had to get material things in order to be happy. Now, what I shifted to is an idea of becoming rather than getting. And in that becoming a marathon runner, I got a medal to hang around my neck by completing that marathon. But rather than, getting something, I focused on who it is that I wanted to become. And I started dreaming again. I started to imagining through this idea of event plus response equals outcome. I started thinking about what are the outcomes that I want in my life. I started dreaming about who do I want to be. I still had dreams of the things that I wanted to acquire, the things that I wanted to own or have. But because I was more interested in who I wanted to become, it gave me purpose for living. So I created these visions of what I wanted my life to be like. And then I set about becoming the person who is capable of living that sort of life. Okay. So I also learned that when I started to apply that, and my life really, really did change. I started life coaching by a very interesting sequence of events. I didn't set out to become a life coach. Somebody noticed the changes that had taken place in me and the way I interacted with other people. And this other gentleman, we weren't really even friends, but we had known each other for a long time because our kids played on the same sports team together. And he came up to me and he said, "Bruce, there's something different about you. What's going on?" And I told him about what was going on. And he said, "I see what you've got in your life, and I want that in my life. Would you consider being my life coach?" And so that's how I started off in this life coaching practice. I started writing again, and I started experiencing just great joy and happiness, things I had completely given up on. And I also learned the value of this phrase right here. Your endurance is directly proportional to the clarity of your vision. And I didn't know this phrase exactly as it's stated here, but that's how I became a marathon runner. I had this vision of being a marathon runner. I wanted very much to be a person who could run marathons. And so the endurance, enduring the difficulties, enduring the rigorous and disciplined training necessary to do that was directly related to the vision that I had of myself completing the marathon. See, if I didn't have a very strong will to become a marathon runner, then I wouldn't have gone through the discipline necessary to do that. So this vision that we hold about our future gives us the endurance to go through the things that we need to go through in order to fulfill that vision. I learned this lesson in February 17th of 2014. My life was now very much what I wanted it to be. I was very much living the life of my dreams up to this point. I was writing again. I was life coaching, and I had a large following in social media and my blog. I had already written one book that was very popular in not only in the running community. My very first book was a marathon training book, but it was all about the psychology of running. It was all about the motivation. It was this idea of your endurance is directly proportional to the clarity of your vision. I thought my life was going exactly the way I wanted it to go. On February 17th, I got a phone call from my doctor. And when your doctor calls you with what is supposed to be lab results that were supposed to come back normal, but when your doctor calls you and you can tell that he's holding back tears, you know there's something wrong. This was the day he told me, Bruce, I had just turned 50 years old. He said, Bruce, you have stage 4 prostate cancer. And I have to admit that was like getting kicked in the chest. I had a hard time catching my breath. I didn't know what to do. All of these visions started flooding my mind. I hung up the phone and I sat at my kitchen table and I cried. I cried because at this point now I am a single dad with full custody of my 2 boys. And I have these thoughts. Well, my gosh, who's going to take care of my boys? And this isn't supposed to go this way. And my life was going exactly the way I wanted it to go. And how could this happen to me? I thought that the bad things of my life were now behind me and they weren't going to come back again. Well, that's not the way life works. Life is about ebbs and flows, good days and bad days. And even though I did spiral for a day or two, and the negative victim thinking came back for a couple days, I was reminded of all of the work that I had already done, the emotional work, the life coaching work that I had done on myself. And I had to remind myself, Bruce, this is an event. How you respond to this event is what will determine the outcome. So I set about the business of getting ready for the surgery. My cancer was advanced, and we didn't really have a lot of other treatment options other than having the radical surgery to remove it. So I had my surgery on April 7th of 2014. And while my doctor had a plan for how the surgery would go, and he had explained that plan in great detail to me, and I was ready to go through that. I was supposed to arrive at the hospital that morning very early, which I did, and then I was going to spend a couple hours in recovery, and then I would be moved to a hospital room where later that day they would have me up and walking around, and depending on how I did, I would certainly spend that night in the hospital, but I would probably go home the next morning. Things didn't turn out that way. And as I found out after the fact, in the recovery room, where there were now a lot more doctors and nurses and machinery around me than my doctor had originally told me there would be, I started to learn more and more about what happened during the surgery. There were complications, and the surgery that was supposed to take an hour and a half took almost 5 hours. And it turns out that they almost lost me on the operating table. I lost a significant amount of blood, and my blood pressure dropped to the point where my heart was where it was struggling. And so the doctor, though, was amazing, and he did what he had to do, and he saved my life. And so the complications of the surgery were through no fault of his. I had an anatomical anomaly that nobody had anticipated. And so the recovery process from the surgery was much, much more extensive, much more painful. Brutal is the word that I use. The amount of pain that I was in because of the blood loss, I wasn't able to take the painkillers that they had planned to give me. And I learned something, though. I learned that thoughts become things. I had already known this, but I learned this idea in a very, very real way. So I want to share with you the thoughts really do become things. As I was recovering from my surgery, I told myself, again, we are in control of the story, our inner dialogue, the narrative that we tell ourselves. I could have gone back into victim mode and said, oh my gosh, the surgery didn't go the way it was supposed to, and now my life will never be the same, and I'm going to have all of these difficulties now for the rest of my life. I could tell myself that story, but that would not be a story in keeping with the vision that I still had for my life. So I told myself a story. I thought the thoughts of complete recovery. Okay? I told myself a story about how my life was still, even though I had this setback, this was merely a detour. It was not going to stop me from going to the destination. And the destination, I created the metaphor of life is an amazing party. Have you ever been invited to a party that you really, really, really wanted to go to? And you said to yourself, you know what? No matter what comes up, there is nothing that's going to stop me from going to this party. If I get sick, I'm going to do everything I can to get as healthy as I possibly can. If my kids get sick, I'm going to hire babysitters. I'm going to hire not just one babysitter, but I'm going to line up backup babysitters just in case the babysitter gets sick. I am going to this party no matter what. That's the story that I told myself. Stage 4 cancer was not going to stop me from going to the party of the life that I had visioned for myself. I bathed every single minute of every single day in gratitude for being alive, rather than playing the victim and going, oh, why me? I'm in so much pain. This wasn't supposed to happen. No, I said, thank you. Thank you that I'm alive. Thank you that I can take each breath. Thank you that I can smell and see and taste and feel. Thank you that I have boys in my life. Thank you that I have doctors and nurses who are taking care of me. Thank you that I have so many friends and family who are coming by to visit me to see if there's anything that they can possibly do for me. So I had, well, some people could have told a story about how much they had lost. I reminded myself of how much I still had for which I needed to be grateful. I focused on what I wanted rather than focusing on the pain, rather than focusing on the setbacks and the disappointments. I continued to focus on my vision for what I wanted for my life, and I celebrated victories. I was so weak from the blood loss, I celebrated things like the day I was able to eat solid food again, the day I was able to sit up in my bed without passing out because my blood pressure was still so low. I celebrated the day I was able to get out of bed. And even though I had to hold on to a walker like an old person, I still celebrated that. In fact, I got out of bed and I got out into I lived on a cul-de-sac at that point, and 2 doors down from me was this 90-year-old man, and he used a walker. And to get himself exercise, he would use his walker and do a couple laps around the cul-de-sac. So here I am. I'm a marathon runner. I shouldn't have to use walkers, but that's what I did. And so I got out there with my neighbor and we walked together using our walkers, and I celebrated every single lap I could take. Most importantly, though, the reason I was able to do all of those things was because I had a dream about the life that I wanted for myself, and I held on to it. I did not let the setbacks deter me or cause me to give up on my dreams. So later that year, So in fact, as I'm recording this, I'm sniffling because I have a cold. These are the things that happen. So later on that year, as I held on to my dream, as I continued to take whatever progress I could to get back on course. You see, this is the beauty of knowing where you want to go. If something knocks you off course, when you're able to, you can get back on course because you know where you want to go. If you don't know where you want to go and these difficult things happen to you in your life, then you don't know where to go. So you're just floundering. I knew who and what I wanted to become. So later on that year, I started my Life is a Marathon podcast. Okay. I started getting invitations to speak. I got invited to speak at events. I got invited by businesses to come and talk about my experience, to motivate their staff, their employees, to teach this mindset to their salespeople. I got invited to go on cruises. Okay. My life coaching practice, when I got my cancer diagnosis, I pretty much had to put it on hold. And I lost almost all of the clients that I had at that point because my recovery process was, 6 to 9 months long. And so people either moved on and found other life coaches. I basically had to start all over. So later on that year, not only did I get some of my clients back, but I got clients that I never thought I would get. And so my life coaching practice expanded to be better than it was when I got my diagnosis back in February. The most important thing, well, not the most important thing, but one of the most amazing things is that while I was in the hospital, my doctor came to me and he said, Bruce, I don't want to be I don't want to be a pessimistic person, but I think we need to be realistic. I know how much you love running. And I'm not saying that you will never be able to run again, but I'm just saying that with the amount of cutting that I had to do inside your abdomen, the amount of blood loss that you've had, there's a very strong likelihood. And I'm just preparing you for the reality of the situation. You may never run marathons again. My doctor was loving. He was well-intentioned in telling me that. But what he didn't understand was that his idea of reality was not my idea of reality. Exactly 1 year later, not only did I run a marathon, but I ran the Boston Marathon, the granddaddy of all marathons. So this is a picture of me in my hospital bed in April 2014. And that angle of the bed was the highest they could set me up at that point without me passing out because my blood pressure was so low. Then exactly 1 year later, that's me with my arms stretched out, striding across the finish line of the Boston Marathon. While I was lying in the bed in the hospital, I visualized myself in exactly that position, holding my arms out. I said to myself, not only am I going to run marathons again, but I'm going to run the Boston Marathon. I don't know how, I don't know when, but I am going to do it. Little did I know then that it would happen exactly 1 year later. So this is one of the things that I just share with you about why it is so important to dream, to visualize the things that you want for your life. Because dreams do come true. And I'm going to explain that in just a couple minutes here. So our dreams do come true, but we have to dream. So I want us to ponder a couple things, okay? Who, what, and where you are right now is largely due to the thoughts you have thought up to right now. So remember back in my life, I was a pessimistic, negative, sarcastic, cynical person. I told myself a story that I was never going to get anywhere in life. And that's what I got. So it's all about this story. If you think that life is going to be difficult, if you think that work is always going to be hard, if you think that relationships are not going to be what you had hoped they would be, then that's what they turn out to be. And you are the sum total of the thoughts that you have thought, because our thoughts ultimately determine the actions that we will take in life. Okay? Our thoughts, hopes, and dreams of the future determine those actions. Again, it's this idea of the party. If I invite you to a party and I just tell you when it's going to be and where it's going to be, and I don't tell you very much about it, just you got an invitation to a party at Bruce's house. If you think the party is going to be boring, or it's just going to be another ho-hum, Bruce doesn't throw I don't really know Bruce. I've never been to a party at his house, but I don't think it's going to be very exciting. Well, what kind of energy are you going to have? What kind of action, even if you do RSVP and say, yeah, I'm going to come to your party. If you get the sniffles and you start feeling bad, you're going to go, you know what? I didn't want to go to that party anyway, and I'm not feeling well, so I'm just going to cancel. If the kids get sick, you're going to say, you know what? It's just not even worth getting a babysitter for, so hey, I'm just going to cancel. Are you going to tell any of your friends or neighbors or coworkers, hey, I got an invitation to Bruce's party? If you have no excitement about the party, you're probably not going to tell anybody about it. However, if you believe that it is going to be the most amazing party that you have ever been to in your life, again, you don't know anything about the party, but you get to tell yourself the story that it's going to be whatever it is you want it to be. If you think it's going to be an amazing party and you have this idea that nothing is going to stop you from going to it, you're going to tell your friends, hey, look what I got in the mail today. I got an invitation to a party at Bruce's house. This is so exciting. You're going to believe that there are going to be people there who you've wanted to meet your entire life. You're going to be thinking there's going to be someone there and something is going to come out of it. Maybe there's going to be a business relationship. Maybe there's going to be a personal relationship. I'll meet somebody who I'll fall in love with, or it will lead to something in some way. The music is going to be great. There's going to be dancing. You're going to have energy that determines the actions that you take during the days leading up to the party. See, we are hope-shaped creatures. The hope that we have for our future determines our behavior in the present. So if you want to change your life, you change your thoughts. You change the story that you are telling yourself about the future. And I love this quote. Many people have used it, but it's a book by the late Dr. Wayne Dyer. Change your thoughts, change your life. It happened in my life. It has happened in the lives of so many people I know or who I've actually worked through or worked with. As I have helped people change their thoughts, one of the most rewarding things that I get to do is watch your life change because of the way you change your thoughts. Okay? The other thing that we know is we love this quote, right? We've seen it, and this is a graphic that I just grabbed off of the internet. It's all over Instagram, it's all over Facebook and Twitter, it's everywhere. This Henry David Thoreau quote that says, "Go confidently in the direction of your dreams, live the life you've imagined." And it's this great motivational quote that inspires us to dream and to live this amazing life, right? We see this quote all the time. I really, at its core, I really do like this quote. However, the truth of the matter is this: you always are going confidently in the direction of your dreams, and you always are living the life you are imagining. Okay, so that is the reality of it. Is you always have been, and you always are, and you always will be going confidently in the direction of your dreams, because your dreams are the story that you're telling yourself about the future. It is your imagination. So the problem is not our inability to live the life of our dreams. The problem is that we're not dreaming the right dream. We're not dreaming about the life that we actually want. We're imagining a life of pain or suffering or just of averageness. We've decided that we're never going to be rock stars or actors or actresses or world famous writers or speakers or whatever it is that when we were young came so naturally to us to want for our lives. We gave up on those things. And so when we give up on our dreams kind of give up on us because we don't take the action necessary to create the life that we want. Okay, so the problem is not our inability to live the life of our dreams. We always are going confidently in the direction of our dreams. The real question is, what are you imagining about your life? I was for most of my life, and most of the people that I encounter on this planet are living lives of quiet desperation. We know deep, deep down inside that there's something more, that we're capable of being more than we are. Yet we've talked ourselves out of it. We've told ourselves a story that, oh, that I don't know where that feeling is coming from deep down inside or that wakes me up in the middle of the night, but it must not be real because dreams don't come true. Okay, so it's time to start dreaming joyfully again. Okay, we've had joyful, abundant dreaming domesticated out of us. And I love this phrase, domesticated. I have dogs and I have cats in my house, and there's nothing inherently wrong with the domestication process. So when we get a puppy, we teach our puppy what is and is not acceptable behavior in my house. You do not chew my brand new leather shoes. You don't chew on the dining room table legs. You don't chew up the sofa, and so we domesticate our pets. We teach them, if you want to live in my house, these are the ways you need to behave. So I teach my boys, okay? I say, as long as you're living with me, these are the rules. These are sets of behaviors that are acceptable or unacceptable when you live with me, okay? However, we get dreaming, joyful, wild, fantastic dreaming domesticated out of us. When we were young, it was absolutely just part of our DNA. And it actually is still part of our DNA. And we're going to learn how to tap into that throughout the next 8 weeks of this course. But we dreamed of being astronauts or firemen or ballerinas or whatever it is that we used to put on costumes and play pretend when we were kids. And then as we started growing older, again, well-meaning, well-intentioned, loving people, very often our parents, our teachers, or just society in general says, you know what? It's time to stop dreaming and join the real world. Bruce, you've got to stop being such a dreamer. It's time to just get about the business. You know what you need to do? You just need to get a job, Bruce. You need to make money. Okay. And so, no, you're never going to be that. You want to be an astronaut, but astronauts have to have a really firm grasp of science. And as I look at your science grades throughout high school and college, Bruce, you're probably just not cut out to be an astronaut or a scientist. So maybe it's time to adjust your dreams. Maybe it's time to pursue something else, or it's our parents, and I have to I have to caution myself from doing this with my boys because we don't we've been hurt in our lives as we've attempted to achieve things and then we failed. We don't want our kids to experience pain. And so we say, oh, honey, you know what? That's a great dream. But almost nobody is able to become an NBA basketball player. You know what? The likelihood, you're only 5'1", okay? So, the likelihood of you playing for the NBA is really, really small. And I don't want you to get hurt. So maybe you shouldn't hold on to that dream. See how it happens? This is how we get our dreams domesticated out of us. The other way is just through real life experiences. We get hurt. We get disappointed. We dream, maybe we dreamed of asking that person out on a date, but you asked somebody out on a date once and they rejected you, or they laughed at you and said, you got to be kidding. I'd never go out with you. And so you don't do that again because that hurts. So the limiting beliefs that we have placed on ourselves are also a form of self-preservation. So we seem to settle for safety. But I want to tell you that the very same walls that you've built up around you to keep yourself safe, those are also the walls that are keeping you small. They're keeping you from living an amazingly abundant, joyful life. Okay? It's time to take chances again. It's time to start putting yourself out there and not limiting yourself and what you're capable of doing. The other thing that, as we talk to old people, we ask them, as you look back over the span of your life, do you have any regrets? Invariably, if you watch interview after interview after interview with people who are advanced in years, they will all say, yes, I have regrets. And then they will start to tell you about their regrets. And almost always, their regrets are about having not pursued their dreams. It's about, most people regret what they did not do rather than the things that they made mistakes at. I don't want that to be you. I don't want that to be me anymore. I don't want to look back over my life and say, you know what? I always wanted to start a podcast, but I didn't think anybody would ever listen to me. I certainly didn't think that over 1 million people in 196 countries around the world would ever care what Bruce Van Horn had to say. And so I just did it. And we are all better because of that. Okay? People regret what they did not do rather than the mistakes that they've made. Okay? So this is what I also believe, and it's a paraphrase of something Walt Disney said many, many years ago, back in I believe it was in the 1950s when he actually said this, and he was just forming, Disney Corporation, and he was just then drawing Mickey and Minnie Mouse and coming up with these ideas that is now, just one of Mickey Mouse is one of the most widely known symbols throughout the world. Walt Disney had this belief that we would not have been given the ability to dream if we had not also been given the ability to make it come true. The other thing that I really like is, I don't remember who I heard it from, but these dreams that wake us up in the middle of the night, these feelings that we have of something that we want to do, maybe we're scared to do it, or maybe we don't know how to do it right now. But if you have this dream, this desire to be someone or live in some way that you're not living right now, that is actually your dream calling to you, asking you to become that person to manifest it. It wants you to give it life because you have the dream, because you already have this innate ability to make it come true. And so very often it's not that we have to figure out what our calling in life is. It's just that we have to listen to our dreams calling to us and step in the direction of creating those dreams. One of the things that I know is that everyone in my life has benefited from me deciding to not roll over when I got cancer. The changes that I made in my life, my decision to become a marathon runner, has benefited you in very real ways, because I'm recording this today because my brother said to me, the hardest part about running a marathon is making the decision to do it. And I made the decision to do it. I improved my life and I changed the world. Your loved ones, the entire world needs you to be the fullest expression of who you were created to be. Nobody is served well by you staying small and not pursuing your dreams. Everybody benefits when you seek to improve yourself. Okay? So, as I talked about in my life, having a dream, this idea, this imagination, this movie that you play in your own head for yourself, this life that you want to create, this person that you want to become, that gives you purpose. Okay? And when you have purpose, it allows you to live intentionally. So I interact with you. I interact with the old lady at the grocery store. I interact with my boys. I interact with people that I see on the streets with an intention of becoming the person who will ultimately manifest the dream that I have. Living each day on purpose is the most powerful way to create the life you desire. If you have a dream, you have a purpose. And when you have a purpose, every single morning when you roll out of bed, you don't have to question, well, what do I need to do today? You just need to remind yourself of the dream that you have, and you need to ask yourself the simple question, what one little thing can I do today to move in the direction of achieving that goal? Or what can I do today to become the kind of person who can have that type of lifestyle? Living on purpose each day is the most powerful way to create the life you desire. And one of the things that I have learned is that it's not so much about hoping and praying that your dreams come true. Living the life of your dreams is less about your dreams coming true and more about you becoming true to your dreams. Okay, remember, it's not about that we want to get the things that our dream life will provide us. It's that we need to be focused on becoming the person who can live in that dream world. The dream that we believe exists out there, we have to become that person who can step into that lifestyle, who can step into that existence. So it's really about you becoming true to your dreams. That's what this course is all designed to help you do. So creating the life of your dreams, my goal is to help you shape your brain, shape your thinking around this idea of becoming. Who do I need to become in order to live my dream life? Okay, so let's talk about where we're going to go. As I wrap up this lesson, let's sort of look in advance as to where we're going to go in this course. Of course, this is lesson 1, and so we've got 7 more lessons ahead. This is an introduction for creating your dream life. I've talked to you about how I've been creating and living the life of my dreams. Me actually producing this course for you is very, very much part of me living my dream life. So in the next lesson, we are going to dive more into this idea of limiting beliefs. Because once we really understand how we have limited ourselves in our beliefs, in our ability to dreams, how we have told ourselves a story that keeps us small rather than a story of expansion and abundance of joy, then we can turn those around. But it's the limiting beliefs that we have are often so subtle, we have just accepted them as reality. You know, we accept these rules that we have to live within. You know, somebody said to me once, I was talking to a friend of mine, and we were going to be doing an upcoming retreat, and there were going to be 3 of us. And I told her that I had a conversation with this other woman, and I said, you know, and she is going to be great for this event. She's in her early 40s, and I was going on and on. And then my friend stopped me and she said, Bruce, wait a minute. How do you know how old she is? And I just said, I asked her. And she's like, Bruce, you don't ask women how old they are. And I said, well, I did. And who made up that rule? You know, that's a stupid rule. If I want to know how old you are, I'm just going to ask. Why should I assume how old you are? You know, assumptions lead to dangerous mistakes, right? And so little things like that, you know, I can't ask, a limiting belief would be, Bruce can't ask you how old you are if you're a lady because you might be offended by that. Well, I asked this woman how old she was, and I did it in a way that was, you know, she was not offended in any way, and she eagerly told me how old she was. And we had an amazing conversation about the stages of life and stuff like that. It wound up being fun. And so if I had held on to that limiting belief that I can't ask women how old they are, then you know that's no way to live. So we're gonna look into this idea of limiting beliefs and how to recognize them and how to turn them around into expansive beliefs. Okay, I believe everybody needs to have a genie in their life. Okay, you do, whether you know it or not. The genie, you know, and we're gonna use the phrase genie here, but many people, you know, talk about God. They talk about infinite intelligent, you know, so that some people will get involved in religion and spirituality here. And so you can use whatever you want in this part of lesson 3. But you know, the question is, what would you ask for if you knew the answer was yes? So what if you encountered a genie, an angel, you know, whatever you want it to be, whatever works best for you, who said, I will give you anything you want. You just have to ask. What would you ask for? Right? It is amazing to me. And, you know, not so much amazing because I had to learn how to do this too, but it is amazing to me how often people struggle with this. If the genie asked you, what do you want? What would you ask for? See, again, we have limiting beliefs that say, well, you know, well, I would ask for such and such, but you know, I could never get that. So I better ask for something less than that. Or if I asked for $1 billion, well, that would just be greedy. And so I'm only going to ask for $1 million instead. So, you know, we're going to unfold all of that. And so we will talk about the genie in lesson 3. Then I'm going to get you to write a very, very important letter. I'm going to get you to write a letter to a friend. You know, this could be a real friend or an imaginary friend, but I'm going to get you to write a letter to a friend you haven't spoken to in a very, very long time. We're also going to talk about vision boards. One of the most powerful ways to, once you know what your dream is and who you want to be, I kept pictures of marathon runners. I cut them out of magazines, or I screen captured them off of my internet browser, and I printed them off, or I saved them to the screensaver on my computer. I had pictures of people crossing the finish line of marathons all around me. I've had pictures of best-selling books, and I will put my own titles on them. So creating and maintaining a vision board of what it is that you want in your life is a very, very powerful, powerful way of keeping that vision in front of you, so that every single day you can look at it and say, okay, what can I do today in order to take a step closer to that? Okay. Step 5 is going to be the eulogy. If you were able to drop in on your own funeral, what would people be saying about you? Would they be talking about the amazing car that you drove, or all the money that you had? Hasn't been my experience. My experience is they talk about character. They talk about influence, the kindness, generosity. So we're going to spend a lot of time crafting. If you could write the script of your own eulogy, what people, if there was an open mic at your funeral and people could come up and say whatever they wanted to say about you now that you're gone, what would you hope they say? And so we're going to write the script of your own eulogy in lesson number 5. Then we're going to talk about life balance. We're going to talk about, very often when we first start off in this dreaming process, we think about things like money or relationship or health, but it's easy to get focused on a single area of our lives. And so we're going to talk about the various areas of our lives, and you'll use those areas to go back and recraft or rethink your dreams, or think about areas of your life that you haven't thought about for a long time, if at all. So we're going to talk about something called the wheel of life and life balance, because life isn't all about money. Okay. And so when we approach the genie and the genie says, what do you want? Well, we don't want to just ask for money. We want to ask for great relationships. We want to ask for wisdom. We want to ask for, spiritual growth. We want to ask for health. We want to ask for careers, and, all of these different areas. So lesson 6 is going to be about life balance. Then nothing would be complete if we didn't talk about gratitude. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and tell you right now that gratitude in advance is the most powerful creative force that exists. So whatever your dream life is, feeling gratitude for having that dream and gratitude for what you have right now is the most powerful thing that you can do to manifest your dreams. So we're going to dive right into gratitude in lesson 7. Lesson 8, we're going to wrap it all up and put a neat little bow on it. But we're going to talk about, what can we do practically now to start creating and living the life of your dreams. So that's where we're going with this course. Okay. So at the end here of this first lesson, lesson 1, I'm going to give you homework. Okay. The very first thing that I want you to do, and you're going to be able to download the PDF for this, and you can do this on, you can print this off and write it out on paper, or you can do this on your computer. It doesn't really matter to me how you do this, but I want you to think about, and I want you to write out a couple sentences, a couple paragraphs, however long makes sense to you. I do know that the more you do this, the more you put into this course, the more you'll get out of it. Because here's the reality. The more you put into you, the more energy you spend on becoming the fullest expression of who you were created to be, the more you will gain from it. So what does this phrase, living my dream life, mean to you at this point? I know we're only one lesson into it, but it will be fun to, by the time we're done with lesson 8, to come back to this question now and see how it may have or haven't changed. Okay. So right now at this point, what is this concept of I am living my dream life? What does a dream life mean to you as it exists right now? There is no right or wrong, and so don't apply any limiting beliefs. Don't apply anything that says, "Oh, well, Bruce wants me to write this type of, idea." No, Bruce doesn't want you to, to limit yourself in any way. What does this phrase, living my dream life, mean to you right now? That's your writing assignment. The other thing that I do want you to write out a couple other things. If you could have anything you asked for, what would you ask for? So just make a note of a couple of these things. If the genie said, "What do you want, Bruce?" What would Bruce answer? Okay, so I want you to make just a list. This doesn't have to be a long list or a short list. Again, I'm not saying give me 10 things. If you could have anything you wanted, what would you ask for? Okay, so your next homework is, these lessons, these video lessons here are just part of the actual work. This course is an interactive course. So we are going to have a live video call. If you're able to access it through video, if you've got a camera, a webcam built into your laptop, you can actually, if you've got a smartphone like an Android or an iPhone, you can download the application onto it, and you can be live on this call. But we're going to talk about these things. So I'm going to ask you on this live video call, what is your idea of the dream life? What did you write down for this? And what would you ask for? What are some of the things that have been holding you back from living your dream life? So this is an interactive course. You're going to get to meet some of the other people who are taking the course. You're going to get to talk to me. If you can't access this via video, then there's going to be a telephone number, and this is going to be in the notes that are part of this lesson. I'll include for you the day and time of the video call, and there will be a link that you'll click on to use the Zoom application to access this. Then there will also be a phone number. If you don't have access to video, you can call in, and if you're at work and you really can't talk, but you can pretend you're on an important phone call, you can listen to the conversation. In any event, if you're not able to participate when the call is live, all of this will be recorded for you to listen to or watch at your convenience. But I do really want you to use this live video call part as part of the course itself, because you're going to learn so much from other people and to see what their perspectives are. Okay. So last but not least, I want you to get really, really excited about who and what you are about to become, and come back for lesson 2. So as I wrap this up, I want to, again, thank you for being with me to watch this video. Thank you for the investment that you have made in yourself. You're not just making your life better, you're making the lives of those who love you and who you love better too, by becoming the fullest expression of who you were created to be. I also want to share something with you that you might not have considered. You are right now a different person than you were when you started watching this video. You have started a process. You've thought different things. You are already expanding your thought processes, your belief systems, and you are already different in healthy, positive ways right now than you were when you started. And that process is only going to continue to grow and expand within you. So thank you. And I look forward to seeing you on the video call but I'm also going to be excited to be back with you for lesson 2. Until then, know that I love you, and I hope you have a great week, couple days, whatever. Start dreaming and live the life that you want joyfully to experience.